The complexity of the human experience has been used by writers all throughout history as they try to encapsulate the intricate nature of humans and their lives. In The Crucible by Arthur Miller and Terrorism by Carrie Rudzinski, we see accurate and realistic representations of the power of fear from within the human experience. The way humans allow fear to infiltrate their lives and take over all rational thinking. The Crucible represents the key idea of the human experience of fear and the power it has over humans. A key character, Abigail, is a crucial example of the representation of fear and the power it has over ourselves and others. In Terrorism, we see a modern example of the uncontrollable and hysterical fear humans have for the unknown. In The Crucible, Miller's characterization of Abigail illustrates the power of fear. Abigail has an immense power over all in the town, and we see the way she commands the girls of the village to do as she wishes. Within the first scene, Miller depicts her power as she commands the girls as to what they will say. Miller demonstrates an accurate representation of a typical hierarchy just as we would see in our modern society. Miller illustrates the girls groveling as they search for an answer to their dilemma. Abigail instantly takes hold of the situation and threatens that she will bring a pointy reckoning that will shudder you, as she tells the girls how they will play out their situation. The metaphor helps to emphasize the complete and utter power Abigail has over the girls. We see in their reactions that Abigail as a character is a force to be reckoned with, which in a way we see the same stigma with Proctor, the untouchable man of the town, which contributes to Abigail's lust for Proctor. Within the first scene, we see the way the townfolk of Salem are changed by their need for reputation. The fear they have of their reputation being questioned or challenged sends them into a state of hysteria. In the first scene, we see Reverend Parris clutching at his daughter as she lays unconscious. Within the first few pages, Parris's motives for his interrogation of the girls becomes apparent as he questions Abigail. He is possessed by the fear of losing his good name. He talks of how he fought for 3 long years to bend these stiff-necked people to me, and now, just now, when some good respect is rising for me in the parish, you compromise my very character. The use of a metaphor of stiff-necked people is a reference from the Bible. God says stiff-necked people about the stubborn Israelites in Exodus 32. The biblical language used shows us how Parris views himself as the town's gateway to God, the way he slips in small little references to his holy nature. The use of alliteration with the harsh C sound in compromise my very character reiterates the harshness of his tone and his desperate nature to keep his good name in the village. The quote shows us the impact pre-witch trials of the combination of fear and reputation has on the people of Salem. The use of fear in the scene tells us, the reader, including myself, just how powerful fear can be and the way it changes us from rational thinkers into hysterical messes, and the impact it has on our lives, of our reputation, and others. Danforth is a character that is driven by reputation and by fear. We see him come undone in the last act as he begs and pleads with Elizabeth and Proctor in the hope of saving them. We see the way his fear manipulates him into making rash decisions, the way he dictates his life on his reputation. In Act 4, he talks of how he would hang 10,000 that dared to rise against the law. The way he talks about the girls and the witches shows his distress in the fact that he must follow through with his actions. His use for hyperbole shows his irrational thought process and how he is scrambling for an escape from his actions. He talks of how postponement now speaks of floundering on my part. Reprieve or pardon must cast doubt upon the guilt of them that died until now. He is so invested in his reputation that he will go to great lengths to keep his good name. Danforth as a character is an insight into the human world and how possessive we are over how we seem and not always as we truly are. The character of Mary Warren is a keen example of the power of fear and how it changes people. In the start of the play, Mary Warren is described as a servient, naive, lonely girl. But as the play progresses, we see her as well use the power of naming names of witches in the town as not to be trialed herself. Miller characterizes her to take on more characteristics similar to Abigail and manipulate the men of the town to be of lower power than her. Miller illustrates this in the scene where Hale comes to arrest Elizabeth. After they have left, Proctor tells Mary she will go to the court and tell them that it was her puppet and that she will be charged murder on Abigail. Though, within one line, Miller changes the dynamic of their relationship. The lack of power Mary has is suddenly gone and she is completely in control. Abigail charged lechery on you, Mr. Proctor. The exclamation at the end shows the importance and the power of those few words. The next stage direction is for Proctor, halting. This is one of the only times in the first 2 acts we see anyone undermine Proctor's hard exterior. Just as when he must recite his 10 commandments, his relationship with Abigail brings him undone. In the poem Terrorism, we see a modern-day example of the power of the fear of mankind. The power of fear in the modern context is beautifully represented in the poem Terrorism. We see the impacts that terrorism has on the everyday human and how it affects us. Throughout the poem, we see how fear impacts us and what it changes in us, and the way it can change our nature and how we react. Rudzinski writes about terrorism in a way that is so relatable for the reader. As humans, we watch these events occur so regularly. We are given, just as she writes, another reason to flinch in crowded places. Rudzinski explores the idea of how oppressive fear can be on humans. Because what does freedom look like? Does it always look like hate? Her use of a rhetorical question invites the reader into the text to question what they believe and to consider her own view. The poem has so wholly encapsulated the way fear takes over our being and the little things in our everyday lives. Both The Crucible by Arthur Miller and Terrorism by Carrie Rudzinski explore and highlight the complexity of the human experience. Both authors have a deep understanding of fear and power, and their knowledge of mankind creates space for the reader to question and challenge their own understanding of what fear and power are in their lives. The Crucible explores the complex nature of how we allow fear to be as powerful as it is. The story highlights how humans have developed to be so invested in their reputation and the power it has over us. Terrorism by Carrie Rudzinski is an exceptional modern example of the power of fear and how it changes our behavior and how we interpret situations. Both texts invite the reader to reconsider and challenge their own views and understanding of the human experience.